One of the most common mistakes I hear in music by beginner composers using virtual instruments is that the timing is off. This instantly makes it sound amateurish because professional music never has sloppy timing. Today I'll show you how to quantize your MIDI so that it sits perfectly on the beat but still sounds natural and expressive. A lot of people get this wrong, but once you understand what's going on, it's fairly simple to fix. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Noam. When I was talking in the intro, you may have been thinking to yourself, what is the problem? I just use the quantize function in my DAW and that's it. But obviously, if it were that simple, I wouldn't be making this video. So let's see why, when working with sampled instruments, simply pressing the quantize button is just not enough. I have here 2 sustained notes and 2 short notes played by a violin. Let's render this into audio and see how the waveform looks. So what we can see here is a few things. First of all, if I look at where this MIDI event started, it was right on the beat. But the sample started very, very gradually. And I'd say that there's pretty much silence all the way up to like here or something. Okay, so both seems to be delayed a little bit and takes it a long time to get into the full sounding note. The time that takes the note to get to its full sound is called the attack time. So obviously when you've got these sustained notes, you've got relatively slow attack time versus these short notes, which have a slower attack time, but they also still have an attack time. First of all, what about this delay? Well, apparently if I open the interface for this virtual instrument by Audio Imperia, if I go here into the advanced tab, I can see this sample start control, which shows me here a negative milliseconds value. What is all that about? Well, as we saw, there is some time that passes from when the sound starts till it gets to a full sounding note. That attack is something that must be compensated for, because if we don't, our music will always sound lagging from the beat. You could obviously pull all of the MIDI backwards until everything sounds in time for you. But a much more elegant solution is using negative track delay. In Cubase, negative track delay is found right here. So we saw that the sample start said -125. So I insert -125 here. Now let's render this again and see what happens. Okay, now on the beat, we have a fuller part of the note. Let's look at the short notes. Even the short notes start a little bit before the beat in order to sound in time. One important thing to say about this is that the negative track delay might be different for each articulation and is definitely different between different sample libraries. So here in Audio Imperia, they make life pretty easy because they have this default 125 millisecond track delay setting that you could pretty much use across most of their instruments and most of the articulations, and that would work fine. But other sample libraries, sadly, don't work this way, and you might have to find yourself making one track for legato, one track for sustained, one track for shorts, and each one of them will need to have its own negative track delay. Once you got all that set up, though, you could just quantize everything to the grid and it would sound in time. Okay, so everything's all good. Well, not exactly. If you've seen some tutorials on YouTube, you may have seen people recommend using soft quantize. Okay, soft quantize means instead of moving the notes to be on the grid, they move them toward the grid, but not the whole way. Why would you want to use soft quantize? I'll show you. I have here a little string ostinato that I put over a drum beat, and it's not quantized at all. Let's listen to my sloppy playing. Okay, a bit sloppy. Now, what happens if I quantize everything straight to the grid? Boom. Let's listen to it now. Not bad, but it is sounding a bit mechanical. Pop, 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 pop. Granted, I'm using a very simple sound. This is not Audio Imperia. This is a simple general MIDI patch that comes with Cubase, and I'm doing that on purpose because in these kind of patches, there is no variation between the different notes. So when you quantize them totally onto the grid, you do get a pretty mechanical feel. This is where soft quantize can help us. I'll undo my quantize and turn on here soft quantize. Now here I can set how much of quantize. Right now it says 52%, meaning every time I press quantize, it'll make it 52% closer to the grid, but not on the grid itself. Okay, so now every time I press Q, let's zoom in here. Q, Q, all right. Now it's much closer, maybe even one more. So it'll be really close, but not totally on the grid. I might have to do some fixing with the velocities there, but to my ears, this sounds a bit more lively than the on the beat quantized sound. Now, take a look here at this drum groove, which I just took from Kontakt without touching. If you take a look here, almost everything is hard quantized, except for a few notes here at the end. Okay, I've got this note, this note, this note. Just the ending is not hard quantized. Let's listen to this. Okay, now let's hard quantize this and see what happens. Very subtle difference, but I'd say it's just a little less lively, a little less human-like. Again, without the quantize. Just a bit ahead of the beat there at the end gives this more natural feeling. Okay, so why not just use soft quantize all the time? Well, first of all, you can use soft quantize, and if it sounds good to you, that's great. But the thing is that with higher quality sample libraries, and that's pretty much all sample libraries except for the really, really simple ones that come maybe with your DAW, you've got variation built into the samples. Let's take another look at the rendered audio we checked out previously. If you look at these sustained notes, they pretty much look the same. But the short notes, look at this one versus this one. If you look closely, you can see these are not exactly the same sample. Let's also listen to them. They sound a little different. Now, this is called round robin, which is the answer of sample developers to the machine gun effect problem. What's that problem? When you'd have a lot of consecutive notes of the same note, you could get something sounding very mechanical. Check this out. I'll create a succession of 16th notes in this simple violin patch. I will also make sure that I have here record note on velocity off to exaggerate the effect. We'll have exact same velocity in all of the notes and the exact same timing, okay? Because I'm using step input. Okay, now let's listen to this. Now you understand why it's called the machine gun effect. But let's check out what happens if I take this exact same MIDI and put it into one of the Audio Imperia violin tracks. Sounds like a violin. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Why is that? That is because of this variation, the round robin. They sampled a lot of samples of this same short G note, and they take a different sample every time one of these G notes come up. So we get a much more natural performance. Now, this is very important when we're talking about quantizing in general, because this actually means that even if you have multiple consecutive notes playing the same note, you have differences in the samples. Now, different samples means minutely different attack times as well, which in effect means that even if you hard quantize all of the samples, you'd get a musical performance due to the variance within the samples themselves. You don't believe me? Let's make an empirical test here. I have here a short piece that I wrote a while back for a different video about the Mixolydian mode, and I used soft quantize here. I did not quantize things all the way. For instance, the string parts, as you can see here, things are not all the way on the grid. They are almost, but they are not totally on the grid. Let's listen to it just the way it is right now. Okay, now let's change everything. Now, I did this before recording the video because for technical reasons, but I did hard quantize everything. Let's see, for instance, these strings. Now everything is totally on the grid. I didn't hard quantize the melody though, okay? But everything else is hard quantized. Let's listen to this. Soft quantize again. I'd say the hard quantized does not sound any less natural than the almost hard quantized. So what I'd like you to take home from this video is, first of all, use your ears. If soft quantizing sounds good to you, use soft quantize. If the hard quantize sounds good, use hard quantize. If you're unsure, I would go toward the hard quantize because, as I said, it should sound fine and natural in almost all sample libraries, whereas not quantizing enough is risking sounding sloppy. Now, you obviously have to have your negative track delays in place. If you're not using Audio Imperia stuff, you can search online for a list of the needed negative track delays for your specific sample library and for each articulation, as I said. Now, there are obviously times when you don't need any quantization at all. For instance, if you want to make a flam effect with drums, if you quantize, you just get rid of the effect. Or if you're making like a harp glissando, it would probably sound better unquantized. And also, sometimes you've got a melody. I didn't demonstrate because I felt the video was getting a bit too long, but I didn't quantize the melody here because I tried it before and it sounded okay, quantized, but I liked it better unquantized. And I think that's something that has to do with melodies. Sometimes you want a melody to sound not totally in time because a player could sort of stretch the tempo a bit, make something sound a little bit late and then a little bit early and things like that, just to give it some more personality. So again, you got to use your ears, and yeah, like everything in music, if it sounds good, it is good. So that's it for today. I hope you learned something. Feel free to subscribe, hit the bell button, give the video a thumbs up. That could really help me a lot. Let me know if you got any questions or comments in the comment section below. Until next time, goodbye.